Welcome to Weekend Night Live, hosted by Samuel Jacobs Abbey, where we play music, talk shows, and interviews on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Stay tuned and keep your dial on www.beinspiredpodcast.com. Don't forget to stay connected, be inspired, be unique, and be different.
Hello, my name is Quan Green, and I would love to share some products that I found that are very beneficial to not only my body, but I'm sure that they would really help your body. I found out that a lot of us are impacted and we need to be detoxed, and I found some wonderful products that will safely detox you and help you to eliminate the waste and feel good about yourself. We also have products that will help grow your hair and give your skin more vibrant radiance and suppleness and help with wrinkles. I also have products that will help with joint pain as well as help you to lose weight. These products are all natural, therefore you don't have to worry about putting something in your body that's going to add problems to the problems that you may already be facing. So if you're interested, please give me a call at 706-426-1471, or you can email me at preciousjewel492@gmail.com. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Wamaya, Wamaya, don't you? 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 Wamaya, Wamaya, don't you?
Okay. Hi, my name is Samuel Jacob Sabi, and I'm the host of Be Inspired with the Weekend Night Live with Samuel Jacob Sabi on Be Inspired Podcast Network. I just want to invite you and your family to tune in every Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time and also at 7 p.m. GMT for those across the Atlantic Ocean to tune in to listen to inspiring voices, to listen to our interviews, individuals who have excelled in different forms of life. We bring them so they will be able to share their stories, and we know that their stories will have an effect on you. On Being Inspired Podcast Network, our mission and our goal is to empower people from around the world who have attained a certain height and sharing their stories to make a social change implication. Social change is very important, and it is important that individuals, families, societies, and leadership spend time to acquire knowledge and skills to help formulate policies and ideas to help shape their communities. That is the more reason why I want to invite you again to tune in every Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time and also at 7:30 GMT on Be Inspired Podcast Network. You can catch us up on www.beinspiredpodcast.network, or you can also join us on our Facebook at Be Inspired Podcast Network, and we can have fun. Once again, tune in and have fun. God bless you. So, folks, like I said, today we are excited that we're going to discuss the issues affecting persons with disability. As you may know, the world all over continue to discuss the issues of disability. It is so important that in the 21st century, the issue of disability still is a problem, not only in developing countries,
but also in developed countries. Historically, people with disability have been denied fundamental human and civil rights. And as we know as well, in this 21st century, the struggle still continues. People who are affected by either emotional or physical disabilities continue to strive hard, not only begging for their fundamental rights which God has granted them, but also they are marginalized in society. And this for many reasons why today it is important that on the Be Inspired radio based in the United States of America, in the city of Woodbridge, in the state of Virginia, we will discuss the issue of disability and its impact on our society. But we are so fortunate that today we have no mean a person to discuss this subject, which is of great importance not only to us but also to bring social change implication to our society. Today, we are so fortunate that we have the president and the founder for the Center for Employment of People with Disability, and also the president and founder of for the Ghana Disability Forum. Now, we is also such an important personality to the point that he is also the founder and the president for Ghana Chamber of Entrepreneurs with a Disability and the chairman of Ghana Coalition of Disability Organizations. For some around the world, I am so privileged to welcome to the studios of Be Inspired Podcast Network, Mr. Alexander Kojo Tetteh. Mr. Welcome to Be Inspired Radio. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to talk about the challenges that persons with disabilities face in Ghana and across the globe.
Oh, thank you
So
so
much,
much.
Doctor.
Thank you so much for your time with us. We are so privileged. We have well over 18,415 people from around the world patiently waiting to know
Wow.
you and also to know the work that you are doing. Let's begin by. I know I went ahead to introduce you, but I mean, reading about your profile, I know you have done so many things that I did not even touch on. Why don't we just spend a minute or two, basically to just talk about your background and what you have been involved in? Will you be kind enough to share this with us?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, Doctor, thank you for the opportunity and for your cherished listeners across the countries that are listening to us. My name is Alexander Tetteh, and Alex live in Ghana, and to be precise, in Accra, Tema. I've been involved in issues of persons with disability because I myself am a person with disability. I got my disability at age 6. When me, I was afflicted by polio, and so that made me not being able to walk.
Alex back on the line. Alex, go ahead. You were telling us about your background and we got disconnected. So please, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Yes, I became disabled at the age of 6, and 6 years, so that delayed my education. So my parents didn't believe what what had happened to me because I was walking, and then all of a sudden I couldn't walk anymore. So for over 3 years, they were looking for a cure for me. My parents would carry me to the shrine and to the prayer camp, and I couldn't make me walk. So a friend of my mother told her that he has to send me to the hospital, and that was where they were able to find solution to my leg. Even though I could not walk completely, I was able to walk with some crutches and caliper. And I that took me about 3 years. I was able to now go to school. And so I started school actually at the age of 9 years. And I started learning how to read and write. In fact, that uh, took that took me to be able to go to school and be able to have some education. So I was able to go to say that it wasn't easy. There were a lot of challenges because children as they are and look at me and they mock me with my disability, and that made me became very violent because I have to fight with them. I mean, children look at me and they laugh at me, and so but I have to be strong and be able to go to school. Fortunately, I was able to complete my education and be able to go to the polytechnic, did a course in accounting, and be able to go to the university and have my master's. In fact, it wasn't easy because I decided that I have to advocate for disabled people because I wouldn't like my colleagues and my uh, other people who would come after me to go through what I've gone through. So I became an advocate for persons with disabilities. I have to work with a disability organization because of being proactive in championing issues of persons with disabilities. So I worked for 6 years for the Physically Disabled Association. I did a lot of things. I was able to implement a lot of projects with Danida, Denmark. I had a partnership with Denmark and Disability Organization. And in fact, we supported a lot of disabled people in the country. In my tenure of work, I was able to establish a youth group for the Physically Disabled Association, the youth wing. I also facilitated an establishment of the women's wing, as well as the sports wing of the association. I worked for 2000 up to 2008, and I decided to do something differently. I decided to champion issues of employment for persons with disabilities. So I resigned and then set up an organization called the Center for Employment of Persons with Disabilities. And our main aim was to facilitate employment and skills development for disabled people because I realized that all the disability organizations were not focusing on the capacity building, especially the economic capacity of disabled people. So I set up this organization and started supporting disabled people in economic empowerment. And as we go along, I also realized that there were a lot of people, disabled people, who would want to do their own work, would not like to work for somebody. So we also set up the Ghana Chamber of Entrepreneurs with Disabilities. We set it up so that we can receive support from government as well as the private sector. And so we set that organization up to be able to support entrepreneurs that are disabled persons, to be able to have some support and have capacity to be able to run their businesses and run it very well. We also set up the Ghana Coalition of Disability Organizations because even though we have the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, there are other organizations that have been marginalized. There are no members of the federation. So we put all of them together to form the Ghana Coalition of Disability Organizations. Then we realized that it is very difficult to communicate, to have information among our members. So we decided to form a WhatsApp organization purposely to be able to communicate through WhatsApp to our members and also to other persons that are not disabled themselves but champion the cause of issues of persons with disabilities. So that is what we call the Ghana Disability Forum. So all these organizations are there to champion and advocate for the rights of persons with disabilities. There are more that I can tell you, but I think that it's enough here. We can go into discussing other issues. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you so much. And those are just wonderful initiatives that you got yourself involved with. And also, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's interesting because uh, so many a times a lot of people thought that uh, people with disability are people who cannot use their senses or are unable to do the work that ordinary and regular people do. But I know your story is a living testimony to prove people wrong that it is not what they may perceive. And also, it's for me, I consider that to be as a source of a success story for even people who are physically challenged to go beyond just accepting the situation and do something meaningful with their lives that in the end will help impact their societies and the things around them, just as you have shown us. But let's go to our conversation for today. We are looking at the issues affecting people with disability and all over the world. This is an issue that the world is struggling to deal with. My question directly to you, Alex, is that from your perspective and based on your experiences, why do you think that our society continue to marginalize people with disability?
Thank you very much. In fact, attitude is a number one killer in terms of persons with disabilities, in terms of the inclusion of persons with disabilities in the socioeconomic fiber of our society. In fact, attitude has a cultural background. You know, culturally, persons with disabilities are not allowed into certain things and into certain places. Even it is believed that culturally, a person with disability cannot be a chief because it is said that a chief must not have any impairment because a chief is kind of the creme de la creme, like a person who should set an example or a person who should lead his people to war. So therefore, if you are a disabled person and you sit in a wheelchair or you are a disabled person who cannot see, who is blind, if you are a disabled person who cannot hear, then how do you lead your people to war? So with that cultural background, persons with disabilities are marginalized. They are not allowed to participate in the family discussion, in the community, and that cultural background affects us even when we move into secular settings. So because of that, sometimes even it affects persons with disabilities employment because when an employer wants to employ a person with disability, they think that is coming to create problem for that person with disability. Instead of creating an enabling environment for disabled people to participate in economic activity, they would rather want the disabled person to sit somewhere and to be given some crumbs and to be given some money. And you see, if you sit down and every day somebody gives you money, it means that that person can then control you. That person can then decide for you. You do not have that power to be able to decide on your own. That was also my experience. When I was upcoming and I was going to school, and the way I was struggling and was sometimes walking to school or crawling to school without slippers on the sun and even in the rain. A certain man in our house walked to my parents and told them, why are they disturbing me to go to school? They should just look for shoemaking equipment and set me up at the roadside so that I become a shoemaker. And that was what the man told my parents. And my parents told him that, well, he says he wants to go to school. So if he wants to go to school, we will support him to go to school. Until the day that he himself decides that he will not go to school, we are ready to support him. And believe you me, if I have not been able to educate myself, I would have been like numerous African disabled persons who are begging on the street. Education is power. So if you are educated, you'll be able to decide on your own. You'll be able to access certain rights that you are entitled to. If you are not educated, it's difficult to be able to access your rights. So our attitude affects everything. I mean, for example, I had disabled women they want to get into family life, want to marry. You know, the attitudes of family members. They think that, oh, why are you going to marry a disabled woman? A disabled woman will not be able to satisfy you as a woman. A disabled woman will not be able to cook, will not be able to prepare and wash for you, will not be able to go and fetch water for you. All these things are all perceptions, and it's a negative attitude that the society has that affects persons with disabilities, our development, our participation, taking part in decision making. It affects us so much, and that is why disabled persons in this part of our world, especially Africa and Ghana, we are poor. We are denying access to education, and because of the attitude of our people.
Wow. And I could not agree more with you. Now, based on all that you've said, we will listen to a short commentary, documentary. But before we go into that, now I know that Ghana as a country has also ascribed its signature to the the UN Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disability. But I know as well that there are several gaps in this area, particularly in the implementation of the Persons with Disability Act of 1715 of 2006, which was critically meant to address some fundamental issues in order to meet the international standards when it comes to the issues of disability. Now, having myself lived in Ghana, worked in Ghana before coming to this part of the world in the United States, I have the impression that in as much as the our system is designed not to accommodate people with physical disabilities, what has changed so far since you and your coalitions and the organizations that you represented? I know there may have been a series of advocacy and workshops and seminars and demonstrations here and there, but what has totally changed? Because I went to Ghana, I think 2 years ago with a couple of friends from the United Nations, and that was the exact question they asked: how do people with a disability access the facilities in this country?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is true. Ghana is a signatory to the UN Convention. Ghana has signed in 2012, ratified the UN Convention. Ghana also passed a disability law in 2006. But I can tell you that not much has changed. The disability movement, we went on countless demonstrations, and I can tell you about 12 years struggle in getting a law. After we got a law, We all went to sleep. We thought that once we got the law, things will fall in place. But the law is there, and nobody, not even government, is supervising the implementation of the law. And I can tell you, for example, it's in the law, it's in section 60. It says that, and it gives a moratorium that all public buildings must be made accessible after 10 years. All public buildings. As it states, the 10-year ended in 2016. And not after the 2016, not getting government made a public statement to say that, oh, public buildings must be made accessible. We are just how we are. Public buildings are not accessible, especially even public government buildings are still as they are still as they were. They are not accessible. So the laws are there. That is good, but implementation is a huge challenge. Implementation is a huge challenge. Schools are built without accessibility. School children struggle to go to school. Some drop out because the school buildings are not accessible. If you go to our hospitals, our hospitals are not accessible because we don't have sign language interpreters at the hospital. So the deaf people go to the hospital and they are given wrong diagnosis because they don't understand the deaf people. And the doctors are not able to communicate with the deaf person. Communication is a challenge. Even though we have national television that have a sign language interpreter, the interpretation goes on only during news time. All other programs, you don't have interpretation. And that is even only for national television. All the private televisions don't have sign language interpretation. My problem is that government is not supervising. Government is not ensuring that the laws that we pass in parliament, the laws must be complied with. So that is the state in which we are. We have a fantastic law, and even we are even seeking for an amended act because the Act 715 lack a lot of things. It did not cover issues of women with disabilities. It did not cover issues of children with disabilities. The Act 715 also did not cover persons with disabilities in a situation in a disaster situation, how they will be evacuated. So nothing has changed. But I can tell you that one remarkable thing that has happened was the adoption or the development of accessibility standard. The development of an accessibility standard. So Ghana now have an accessibility standard. But the problem is that this standard being supervised or ensuring that state agencies and private agencies comply with the standard. Nobody is checking. Just as we have Food and Drugs Authority that ensure that every food and every drug on the market meets certain standards. That is what I thought that there will be an agency that will ensure that public buildings, everything meets the accessibility standard. Service providers meet accessibility standard, but it's not happening in Ghana. So everybody is doing what is doing. Nobody is checking, and that is the situation we face here in Ghana. We don't have a public transport which is accessible. As for private transport, then let's talk about them. A government imports public transport, use taxpayers' money. All of us pay tax. When they bring the buses are only for the able persons. No provision are made for persons with disabilities in this country. in those buses. So if you sit in your wheelchair, you cannot access a bus in Ghana. You need to take a taxi, a cab, and that is expensive for a disabled person who is difficult to find a job. So the right to movement, persons with disabilities are not able to move about to actualize their dreams. That is the situation as we face in Ghana.
Wow, wow. So then what good is it with the law? Because if you have laws which are ascribed in our books, and yet the very individuals or the system that needs to get the laws implemented and put them into action don't seem to care. And because I like the fact that you mentioned that taxpayers' monies are used to import vehicles, for instance, into our country, and then those responsible for the importation of such vehicles do not even consider the fact that there are, if not millions, thousands of individuals in the countries who are affected with disability. Now, the question then will be, uh, how far does your coalition goes to hold government accountability when it comes to the implementations of both the UN Convention and also the Act 715, which you talked about that it needs to be overhauled. I mean, what role do the organization play in holding government accountability? Because in the United States, for instance, definitely there will have been a what we probably will call a congressional hearing if the Ministry of Transportation should have imported such number of vehicles without making provision for individuals or people with disability. What do you think?
But I agree with you totally. I agree with you that we have a part to play, and we've been doing our bit. Probably we need to do more. We have countless disability organizations, but I think that we are not fighting the way we should, because we need to be able to fight on and ensure that all these abuses and all these rights that are denied us, we are able to claim it. But it's rather difficult here because you will do your best, you will try, and government will tell you, will promise you, we will do this and we will do that, but they will not do it. In some years past, when we heard that the government was implementing the BRT, the rapid transport system, my organization made a step. We went to the transport ministry, organized a press conference, and told them that we are not up and our concerns are not included. So government told us, so they've heard us, and then they set up a committee. And for all you know, that committee did not involve some of us who were making the noise. And then at the end of the day, we are just as we are. Issues have not been addressed. The buses are operating, the buses are being imported, and nothing has changed. So I agree with you. We have not thrown in the towel. We continue to advocate to ensure that our concerns are addressed.
Very good, very good. And it's all well and good, and that is why you are on this show to make a case, because the world is listening to you as well, and also we the recommendations from this conversation will definitely make its way to the appropriate authorities to ensure that those who are sleeping on the job will rise up to get the work done. Thank you so much, Alex. We'll take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue with our conversation. We have well over 80 questions coming from all over the world, but I know we'll not be able to finish with all those questions for a want of time. But when we come back from our commercial
Wow.
break, we will go straight into the questions. So stand by and let's listen to this quick commercial.
Have you ever seen a physically challenged person trying to board a public vehicle? Reliant on his wheelchair, Elvis Alipui says if it is not a taxi, he would have to go to a station. Otherwise, he is refused passage straight off, just like this. What did some of the mates tell you?
What they tell me is your wheelchair can't get a place in my car. Even in back seat, you can't go there. And I say I'll go there. He said no, you can't get place for my wheelchair. And the second driver also was telling me they don't open their boots. It's wet.
So Elvis has to wheel himself everywhere he goes. But his trouble is not only with public transportation.
Look at our pavements. They are not accessible. You don't see where you can climb the pavement to cross the streets, and also to pass. Sometimes you in the middle of pavement, AMA mount advert signboard because they are under AMA. You don't know where to pass. You have to get down to the roads. Maybe there the can knock you again, and they waste your disability.
Elvis was not born this way. He says he fell victim to polio when he was only 5 years old. Because of this, he says his education was cut short.
My disability did not allow me to go to school. The school environment itself is not accessible, and also from the a family, from the belief, some people will say, "Oh, he became a disabled. He's the son of river." Or, "Oh, don't focus on him. Focus on the other brothers and sisters who are not disabled."
What did you want to be when you were little?
I wanted to be a technician and the radio station TVs like you. I want to be an electronics man in the radio, in the TV station, as I say. But so you are not a god. So what I propose, it tend to different thing.
Despite societal restrictions, Elvis now makes a living as the manager of the Ghana Society of the Physically Disabled Chalk Factory, supplying chalk to the GAS for schools around the country. So Elvis says he usually has to make a few rounds every week, but almost all the public buildings he visits have no wheelchair access. At the Greater Accra Regional Coordinating Council, he was fortunate to have these men help him up the stairs, but he only ended up at the reception area. This is how he made his way in and out of the bank. And at the Accra Sports Stadium, where he is a member of the Sports Council. Even though there's a working lift at the stadium, it was locked and it only provides access to this space. And this is how Elvis moves around every day, every week. Sad reality, but this is the situation at most public institutions in the country, even here at TV3. If Elvis was a technician here, he would have to rely on people every day to get in and out and about. because even here, we do not have accessibility for persons with disability. From Adisawe, I'm Ifo Akwa Harrison.
Welcome back to the studios of Being Inspired, and we still have Alex on the line. So we just watched a quick documentary from TV3 with people living with a disability, and it's so sad that it looks like our society, by default, do not either care or appreciate the fact that we are all not the same, and that people living with disability needs to be taken care of. Now let's go straight to questions that have come in, and let's begin with Robert. And Robert is writing from Australia. And Robert, question to you, Alice, is that thank you, sir. I am so happy that you found a way to enhance yourself and also to educate yourself, and today see what you have made out of yourself, that even our system could not even comprehend your effort. Thank you so much. You are such an inspiration. My question to you is that what you did that changed your life, what have you done to others, or what does your organization do to help other people affected with disability not to look down upon themselves just as society have accepted, but to challenge themselves to soar high?
I've set up a number of organizations. All this is to empower colleague disabled persons so that they can have life easy or they can manage with life. The organization which I set up, which has to do with employment of persons with disabilities, we employ we facilitate employment for disabled people, disabled graduates, and then for those who have not been to school, we give them skills and make them employable and support them to be able to have access to credit and some loans to be able to get themselves established. And we've supported countless number of disabled people. And for those entrepreneurs, and that is why we've put them together into an association called the Ghana Chamber of Entrepreneurs with Disabilities. We've put them together so that they can access government support. Recently, there's been a lot of attention on entrepreneurs. And I saw that nobody is talking about the disabled person who is sitting somewhere selling something on the table or doing small businesses. Nobody cares about them. So we've put them together into an association as entrepreneurs with disabilities, so the government will also know that some disabled persons are also entrepreneurs. They have set up their own small businesses and are earning income out of it. These are all ways to discourage disabled people from begging on the street. Oh, one thing I forgot, I've also facilitated the establishment of Disabled Beggars Association. Disabled Beggars Association. This is an association which put all the beggars in Accra together to form an association. And they meet every Sunday in Accra. Every Sunday, they meet and discuss issues affecting them, challenges on the street, and how they can come out of the street. Now, I've put them together into an association because I found out that that is the only way to be able to get them off the street. And they are receiving support, and some of them have stopped begging through this initiative. Because governments have tried to get them off the street, and they could not sustain. So this is a few of the things that have been able to do. Now, let's look at the disabled graduates. Now, it's difficult for a disabled person graduates from the university to be able to get a job. Spend all their money to be able to educate them. Because if you educate a disabled person and is not able to get a job, then it's like you have wasted your money. Because if that same money has been used to educate an able person, that able person will have been able to do something. If not being able to work in the office at all, you'll be able to carry load. You'll be able to work at the construction sector, carrying concrete and other things. But for disabled person, your job is limited. There are a lot of things you cannot do. If you are educated, you have to work in the office or you have to be an entrepreneur. And these are things that my office is doing to support the disabled graduates to be able to look for jobs for them, be able to open up opportunities that are within the system for them. So these are a few things that I'm able to do.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the beautiful things that you and your colleagues continue to do to help propagate the affairs of people affecting with disability. Another question coming, and this question is coming from Bangura in Sierra Leone. And Bangura said, Alex, you are so right. Even here in Sierra Leone, it is as if people with disability do not exist. Myself, just as you also mentioned, I wasn't born with disability. I When I was 9 years old, something entered into my eyes, and in the end, I was declared medically blind, and I haven't seen since then. Now I am about 40 something years old now, 42 years old now, and I have lived with this challenge, and it has affected me greatly. The question I want to ask is that uh, since it looks like you are involved in the high positions of government, please can you let the world know uh, what is the responsibility of government in ensuring that people with disability are well taken care of? I know my government is listening, so I'm sure your words will touch somebody's heart to take care of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is government's responsibility to take care of the disabled person. Actually, that is governance. Governance is about taking care of the weaker people, the vulnerable, the marginalized, the voiceless, and the disadvantaged in the society. That is what government is about. Government is not about the riches. Government is not about amassing wealth. Government is about ensuring that the resources that are in the country are shared in such a manner that the weak, the marginalized, the voiceless also are able to make ends meet. So government needs to take care of disabled people, their health, take care of their health care. Government is to ensure that disabled persons are able to access education, are educated in such a manner that they can speak for themselves and access other rights. Government need to ensure that disabled people are empowered economically to be able to work. For those who cannot work, the severely disabled, government is to ensure that they have their daily bread. And so they are given some cash to be able to handle their needs. Basically, government has to ensure that disabled people have decent lives. So government has to ensure that disabled persons have decent accommodation and accessible to be able to take care of life. Government needs to ensure that disabled people are not abused, so their fundamental human rights are taken care of and protected. Government needs to ensure that when disabled people come in conflict with the law, their disability is taken into consideration so that they can also be able to express themselves and speak their minds. So government, persons with disabilities are the responsibility of government.
Got you. And I think you perfectly put it. Now another question is coming, and this is coming from Kenya, and this is coming from Murata from Kenya, and he says that people with disability have faced decades of hardship when it comes to exercising their civil rights. The issues range from being denied appropriate education, housing, transportation, and what have you. Now, how, in your own way, how have you helped or have you called on government to ensure that the basic fundamentals and civil rights of people living with disability are given to them because it is their right and not a privilege? What do you think?
Yes, thank you very much. It's truly is their right and not a privilege because it's a civil right. And in fact, Ghana is implementing the inclusive education. As we speak, over the years, we've implemented a segregated system where disabled people are segregated into a special school. And for those with physical disability, you are asked to go through the regular schools, which are not accessible. But for the blind and the deaf, we have the blind school or we have the deaf school. This system is unacceptable because at the end of the day, the blind man is coming into the society. It is not taught how to integrate with the society. So it becomes difficult to be able to have family, to be able to have friendship, to be able to do business because he has lived in the society of the blind, in the community of the blind, or in the community of the deaf. So the inclusive education policy is a laudable idea. But as we speak, over 2 years, government is still piloting the inclusive education system. And next week, the Ghana Education Coalition is having a seminar, and the title is that it is time for full implementation. Time for full implementation of the inclusive education system. Because inclusive education system will ensure that both the blind, the deaf, and the physically disabled, and the able persons are all having equal facilities, equal support, and are all educated equally. In fact, I've contributed my part to ensure that government lives to its promise and live up to the expectation to ensure that persons with disabilities have an accessible education. We've gone on seminars, we've gone on demonstrations, we've gone on, we've released press statements to ensure that education system is not accessible. Other rights, other civil rights, we've raised issues, we've raised public awareness about the fact that persons with disabilities lack those rights and have put pressure on government to ensure that those rights are made available to persons with disabilities.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it's getting more interesting. And this is also coming from Liberia, from Joseph in Liberia. And Joseph said, employment for people with disability remains a critical issue. As they face hardship over wages, training, and support, people with a disability deserve to be active participants in the workforce. But what do we see? They are marginalized, their applications are either thrown into a trash or they are even asked to identify themselves sometimes on the application whether they are physically challenged or not. And in instances where people have indicated that they are physically challenged, they are not offered the job. From your experience, how do we address such issues, particularly in ensuring that the workforce is fairly inclusive with people with a disability?
Thank you very much, and I thank my colleagues from Liberia. In fact, colleagues from Liberia and Sierra Leone, in fact, I really sympathize with them because of the war, a lot of them have become disabled. They are going through a lot of hardship. I want to use this medium to advocate that the international community comes to their aid. In fact, issue of employment is a hard not to crack. It's a difficult situation for persons with disabilities in the African continent. And in fact, a lot of them are not able to access employment, are not given skills because it starts from education. If you are not educated, it becomes difficult to access employment. I think that the best way is to ensure that government set a quota to both government institutions and private institutions to say that a percentage of your workforce should be persons with disability. And I'm proposing that if it becomes 10% of every establishment to be a person with disability. In that way, employers would ensure that persons with disabilities are employed. And with that system, government must put in sanctions and put in monitoring mechanisms to ensure that every establishment, every company, every firm employs about 10% of its workforce to be or make its workforce as persons with disabilities. Another way is that government must ensure that once a disabled person completes a university, that person must be assured a job. Because I can't understand why a person with disability will go through primary education and go through secondary education and go through a university, all with the support of his parents. And then at the end of the day, he graduates, and then sits at home without a job. This is a disincentive to persons with disabilities striving ahead to be able to have take their destiny into their own hands. I think that government across the continent must ensure that once you are a disabled person and you go through university education, you should not struggle for a job. At the end of the graduation, you should be given appointment to work in the government establishment. Like that, I also want to say that our training institutions must be made accessible. Most of our training institutions are not accessible to persons with disabilities. So persons with disabilities are not able to access those training institutions, especially those technical institutions are not accessible. Government must ensure that those institutions are accessible to make it easy for persons with disabilities to go through their system and to be educated so that looking for jobs will not be difficult for them.
Awesome, awesome. Folks, I know the questions are just pouring in. More people are asking questions, but our time is also gone. We've already been on the conversation for an hour. Can you guys believe it? It happens that fast, and I know our time is up, and we should be wrapping up. My producer is giving me a hint that we need to wrap up. But I'll ask, with the permission of Alex, I'm going to ask two more questions, and then we can wrap it up if it's okay with you, say.
It is okay with me, Doctor.
Great. So the question, this is coming from the Philippines, and in the Philippines the question says that uh, people with disability often need long-term care to address their health conditions. Several issues prevent people with disability from getting the appropriate care they need, forcing them to be placed on waiting lists or possibly of institutional care. Now, again, with your experience, sir, I have not been to Ghana before, but what is the situation in Ghana in terms of long-term care and social support for people with a disability?
Thank you very much. The experience in Ghana is no different. We don't have any special system for long-term care. We are all together. We all go through the same hospital. We are all treated the same. In Ghana is implementing the health insurance system where you pay a certain amount and you are given an ID card. And then when you go to the hospital, you are the basic medical needs are provided. Sometimes some of the drugs that you most needed are not covered by the health insurance, so you have to buy. So that is the system in Ghana. Uh, but for persons with disabilities, sometimes government support in registering them to be able to have the health insurance card. The government pays for them, and they are able to get the health insurance card. But that is so limited because the health insurance card is not able to cover a lot of health needs. It can only cover sometimes consultation and certain minor drugs that are not needed critical. So if your condition is very critical, then you would suffer. So that is the situation here. Then again, for a person with disabilities, for example, who needs calipers, crutches, wheelchairs, and what have you, government facilities or government support doesn't cover any of those. As a person with disability, you need to take care of your health needs. And the situation is so bad.
Wow, 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 wow. This is getting more interesting, and especially the interactions and the conversation. But unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. So our last question for the day, which it's coming all the way from Iceland, all the way from Iceland to our guest. And the question here is. It said people with a disability uh, encounters various barriers when it comes to the availability of community-based housing, with a shortage of funding coming from government, or in countries where government do not even get involved in providing housing for people with a disability. It has become a struggle for them to find safe and accessible and affordable housing. Now, is the situation in Ghana the same?
Yes, it's even worse because when it comes to housing for a person with disability, we are not even considered. The government will come in and say it's putting up an affordable housing. In effect, it's saying that it's going to put up housing for the poor, but for persons with disabilities are not considered. And most of these houses are so expensive that you cannot afford. And these houses are not also built to accommodate persons with disabilities. Housing is actually not part of our dictionary for persons with disabilities. But let me just add that children with disabilities face a lot of challenge, and especially for their parents, and especially women. And especially for people with cerebral palsy. When families bring forth a child with cerebral palsy, the likelihood is that that family will be separated. Mostly the men will leave the child and the woman. And the woman has to take care of this child. And children with cerebral palsy, their condition. You have to take care of them 24 hours. And so this woman also loses her job and loses her husband. But however, there's no government support. So parents of children with cerebral palsy, especially the mothers, are really suffering here in Ghana. There's no school where these parents will take their child to. So it's a serious matter in Ghana.
Wow, 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 wow. Well, anyway, folks, I am sure you've had fun because the interaction has been so productive, and the Alexander's understanding of the subject, it's spot on. Your questions coming from all over the world spot on as well. The audio will be made out of this conversation, and of course, it will make its way to the appropriate department and ministries that handles the issues of gender, disability, and all that. And I will make sure that this outcome gets straight to those who matters, and that is what we can do to help implement a social change in our communities. Once again, folks, I want to thank all of you for staying with us and for your contributions and your suggestions. Let me quickly go back to Alex for his wrap up remarks, and then we'll call it a quick.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abe, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to over 18,000 persons across the globe and to our government, and particularly to Ghana and for Africa government. I think that the earlier they take care of the persons with disabilities, the better. You know, God created all of us, and God wants all of us to live a dignified life. And that is why our countries are poor, because we neglect the disabled and the marginalized and the neglected in society. So we need to take care of them. We need to provide services for them. We need to ensure that they don't cry unto God and curse God. So governments and presidents and ministers who are in charge of issues of persons with disabilities and everybody from the private sector must also put their hands on deck and ensuring that persons with disabilities live a dignified life. Disability, they say, is anybody's lot anytime. If we create an enabling environment for persons with disabilities, we will have a society that is also accessible and inclusive for all. This is what I can say, Doctor, and I hope that we will have this opportunity once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate your contribution and your effort and all that you've done with us. Congratulations once again for the amazing initiative that you and your team continue to do to promote the rights of people living with disability. On that note, folks, I wish you all the best. And Alex, thank you so much again for providing us this insight and the understanding. Guys, continue to enjoy and keep your dial on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Your next segment will be our special gospel night, and enjoy us even as we talk to Alex offline. God bless all of you. Have a good night wherever you are on the globe.
Welcome to Weekend Night Live, hosted by Samuel Jacobs Abbey, where we play music, talk shows, and interviews on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Stay tuned and keep your dial on www.beinspiredpodcast.com. Don't forget to stay connected, be inspired, be unique, and be different.